All right, why did the 2010s look like that? Okay. Good takes are going to be in this video. After the last
Flash
video,
games,
I swear.
MLG, Trollface, and Swag. The internet was a very different place in the 2000s.
This one's going to be cinema,
Memes
bro.
used to
I
look
already
like
know.
this, and YouTube was filled with content you couldn't make today. Regardless of whether you fell in love with Vaporwave or spent way too long watching shooting star memes, you might be wondering where all of this went and what it
I grew up
was.
on this YouTube,
So
bro.
as things get stranger and stranger, we'll dig into the 2010s to try and find out why.
Bet. Let's do it. Classic. Classic.
It's 2024 and everything has a name, including this visual style from the early 10s. Known as
Internet
Awesome
awesome
Source, it was
what?
most prevalent from 2008 to 2016. There's a suspicious correlation between the popularity of the word epic and the use of images like these. Common elements were rainbows,
Oh,
cats,
okay, yeah,
dinosaurs,
true.
unicorns,
Everybody
and
was,
lasers.
bro, everybody had that one person that they knew that was wearing cat shit, like
People were obsessed with lasers.
space cats
Outside of memes
and
like
lasers.
this aesthetic could be seen all over the internet. The intro of Uncle Grandpa is a good example, showing him riding a tiger propelled by rainbows. It was also used in games, with Robot Unicorn Attack from 2010 exemplifying the style. Other instances can be found in PewDiePie's Tuber Simulator, in minigames like Puggle, and Techno Kitten Adventure. If you were browsing
I remember,
YouTube in
I forgot he
2011,
had that.
you might have even seen Le Internet Medley, which boasted over 40 memes in one song. With the flying yarn cats and rainbow puke, there isn't much more you could ask for. But anyway, why was this kind of humour and style so popular? While a lot of these were ironic, rainbows and unicorns formed the comedic basis of too many memes to count. Nyan Cat was close to the top of the most viewed videos in 2011.
That's crazy.
making it a cultural phenomenon.
Rebecca Black Friday. Nah. Jack Sparrow? Nah. Nyan Cat?
This and the
Nah,
popularity of things like
that's
shooting
crazy.
stars influenced the fascination with combining explosions and lasers to make the most epic image possible. To truly
Dubstep,
appreciate this,
oh
you've got
my-
to understand that at the time, random equaled funny. Coupling a
True.
mythical, peaceful creature like a unicorn with destruction and chaos.
Wait,
did not
true. Random equal funny. True.
It was unexpected and therefore
That was so
humorous.
true back then.
This and the popularity of My Little Pony are big
Oh,
reasons
my-
videos like pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows have tens of millions of views. If we look at some other trends from around 2011, this begins to make a bit more sense. With social media on the rise, it was easier to make and share clips to a wider range of people. The idea of trolling was also gaining traction,
Oh my
meaning that
God.
humor often leaned into the absurd and confusing. Naturally, Awesome Source perfectly slots into this landscape, with its use of random combinations and niche internet memes.
True. MLG, bro. Rest in peace.
If you never had XX
Phase.
underscore as part of your username, you were
Classic.
doing something wrong.
True.
Brain rot of today pales in comparison to the content juggernaut that was MLG. You might have watched MLG Peppa Pig, Game of Thrones, or any number of trickshot edits. If it was really bad, maybe you even got caught downloading green screen packs and piecing together your own. Some of the more iconic visuals were Snoop Dogg, random quickscopes,
Oh my God.
orange Doritos, and COD hit markers. Pyrocynical was a major perpetrator, being the man behind MLG Teletubbies and furry inflation art. I find it crazy to look back and see the views on some of these videos. Many are well above 10 million, which speaks to the absolute chokehold they had on the
Dude, that's so
internet.
crazy.
Another recurring detail was Illuminati confirmed, which would often involve
Oh, I
a
remember
text-to-speech
that.
voice linking random things to the all-seeing eye. With that and enough explosions and air horns, you could turn any no-scope into a work of art. Outside of the visuals, they featured numerous sound effects and songs that are probably imprinted deep within your temporal lobe. If you weren't humming it already, My Hope Will Never Die or Holdin' On was the most iconic, with the X-Files
my
theme
God.
also playing a major role. The
Ba-na-na-na.
audio of successful trickshot reactions was featured a lot too. If you're a real one, comment with the rest of this phrase. These kinds of edits can
Triple.
be traced back to
Oh
as
my
early
God.
as 2011.
Classic.
Specifically, a World of Warcraft video made by Jamal. With the green screen overlay of a quickscope, it provides the first known example of an MLG style montage. The reason such videos were
Was this guy the
in the
GOAT?
name, Major League Gaming. Professional esports teams would release highlight reels that went on to inspire fans to begin making their own.
No, that's
With many of
crazy.
these simply being replays recorded by an iPhone, they were usually much worse in quality and far more amusing. As the internet did its thing, these became more and more deranged, and eventually
The classic. Mom, get the camera. Mom, get the camera. No, classic.
Unlike the memes of today, MLG lasted a few years before losing traction, disappearing, for the most part, in 2017.
Oh,
Even though the last decade was only a few years ago, things have changed a lot online. Here on YouTube, this is especially apparent. A perfect case study
True.
for this is the rise and fall of Let's Plays. Let's Plays are the reason many of your favourite YouTubers are your favourite YouTubers.
true. True. You know what?
Broadly, this style of
True.
video involved commentary over clips of a video game that focused on the player's experience.
I have
of
so
it
many
rather than the content
deleted
overall.
videos of Let's
The general
Plays. I'm not
format
gonna
is
lie.
credited to Michael Sawyer, or Slowbeef, whose 2007 playthrough of The Immortals is widely considered to be the first modern Let's Play.
That's
As YouTube
crazy.
began to take off, this style of video did as well. People like PewDiePie would emerge with wildly successful series like his horror playthroughs. The draw here wasn't just the game, it was his reactions and experience of it. By naming enemies and objects like Stefano, he built up his own lore inside these videos that kept people coming back regardless
True.
of the game he was playing. Markiplier found similar success with his
Oh
Five
my-
Nights at Freddy's Let's Plays.
I remember,
the first of which
bro.
was uploaded in August of 2014 and currently sits at over 100 million views.
That's so
Today,
crazy.
however, Let's Plays are seemingly a thing of the past, at
Yeah.
least as a method of blowing up. Arguably, this is mostly due to the oversaturation of gaming content on the site. Making a video titled Let's Play XYZ Episode 3 isn't as likely to take off anymore in a sea of very similar videos. The current
I mean,
landscape does, however, favour challenge videos with an interesting premise, like the Fallout series by It's Jarbo.
you know what? This is actually true though, because if you have something with the twist of a
Another
challenge,
reason Let's Plays have
Oh,
disappeared
yeah.
is
Oh,
they
yeah.
haven't. They've just moved. Instead of watching a YouTube video, much of the audience for Let's Plays has shifted over to streaming.
yeah.
Here they can tune in whenever they want and watch a content creator they like play the game for much longer periods of time. Moving on, if you ever watched the Cake Trilogy...
And it's weird to say that we used to just watch a video of someone like, you know, edited, but now we want everything. Like we want beginning to end. You know, it's crazy.
Frank, iDubbbz and Max Mofo, you likely remember when shock humor reigned supreme. By around 2016, this had come
Oh,
to a
I remember
peak, with
this.
gaming content becoming slightly less popular. In an interview with Trash Taste, PewDiePie refers to this as the Filthy Frank era, a time when even he adapted to the change by making edgier content with a raspier voice.
Hey guys, can I take your boyfriend for a ride?
Can if you want.
He's in.
This was partially the byproduct of ambiguity surrounding YouTube's content policies.
Classic.
It wasn't as clear of a line between unacceptable and acceptable practices. People were maintaining high viewerships and growing exponentially, while saying and doing things that would be pulled from the site today. For example, the Cake Trilogy was retroactively removed following a more recent reaction from PewDiePie.
Man.
This likely reminded YouTube that they still existed and didn't align with the updated content guidelines. In 2017, we saw the beginning of this with the Adpocalypse. I
Oh,
remember at the
God.
time this felt like a huge deal, with many large channels being legitimately concerned about their income. The term describes a mass withdrawal of advertisers from YouTube following several large-scale controversies. Many were no longer comfortable showing ads on content that wasn't family friendly, resulting
Yeah.
in some channels receiving ads while others didn't. For creators like Filthy Frank, this made it all but impossible to make money from their videos. This meant that
Rip.
there was less incentive to make edgy, humorous content, and it quickly declined in popularity. Some of these YouTubers adapted and continue to thrive on YouTube today.
Aware.
Others, like Frank, haven't been seen since 2017. I have, however, found an artist called Joji who
Isn't he-
sounds
yeah.
strangely similar to Pink Guy.
Isn't he just whatever, like Joji, right?
It's hard to categorize something as unpredictable as memes, let alone analyze their use through an entire
You know what's
decade.
crazy? I predict, right? Since streaming's the new way, I predict something else could take off. You know? I predict that maybe IRL streaming might be the next wave, even though it was back then. It could be IRL streaming or just something different, you know?
We're gonna do it anyway. Thanks to Reddit users like
Or
me,
streaming
there's
might
been
just
many
be the
attempts to
meta,
organize them into
just for
specific eras. Today, we'll
the
be
next
focusing
5
on
years,
Reddit
maybe, I
towards
don't
the
know.
end of 2010s.
Whatever
Rage,
it is, I'm gonna try to
Jank,
adapt.
and Surreal. Starting with Rage, this term is derived
Shadow
from
phase.
Rage Comics, which began in 2008 on sites like 4chan. These would typically be short, with 4 panels based around humorous or irritating real-life experiences. The common thread was a collection of so-called rage faces made in MS Paint. You'll recognize Troll Face, Rage Guy, Why You Know Guy, and Serial Guy. This
That's
became more
crazy.
widespread with the inception of r/f in 2009. Funnily enough, this is still active,
Nah.
although not nearly as prolific. Top and bottom text memes were pretty big at this time as well, slapped on top of images like Bad Luck
Bro,
Brian.
this meme format, I swear to God, was like peak. I'm not
Overly
gonna lie,
Attached
bro.
Girlfriend and Boromir. These all followed simple formulas that anyone could relate to
True.
and make themselves.
True.
All it required was an internet connection, the impact font, and a dream. As 2013 rolled around, we can identify a shift into the dank meme era. Here, memes
Oh,
became
God.
considerably more abstract and less centered around understandable and
Just
repeated tropes
random.
like these. This period encapsulates the
Oh my God! Remember just the randomness of like all the memes that were just popping up, like the one where the guy's like on the boat. He's like, "It don't go down. It go down," and we just never see the end. I don't think. Or like just random people falling.
MLG,
That
the
was
use of
crazy.
these glasses, and Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life. Still,
I remember
these were
that.
far from the most iconic. 9+10, Harambe,
Oh my
Raven
God.
Nation, We Are Number One,
21?
and No Away all emerged in a similar time frame. Instagram meme accounts started to become huge,
Oh,
almost part
yeah.
of a multi-platform ecosystem that produced, propelled, and modified memes throughout their life cycle. A big reason some of these were so bizarre and nonsensical was that Gen Z was growing up and becoming increasingly active on social media. By using
True.
themes and references that only they could understand, they distanced themselves
my
from older
God.
generations and formats. This is also why some of them were quite edgy, with all of it playing a role in forming their own distinct online identity. You can see this reflected in the creators who were popular among the demographic. As I
True.
mentioned before, if you weren't watching Let's Plays, you might have tuned into Max Mofo, iDubbbz, or Filthy Frank, who had
I was a
collaborations
more let's player type of.
most
viewer.
shared memes and phrases. A perfect example of this is the green screen of It's Time to Stop, which appeared in hundreds of edits on multiple platforms.
True.
Next up is the Surreal era, that kicked off in the late 2010s. This was home to deep fried memes.
Oh
Grab
God,
Wave,
I remember
and of
this
course,
one.
the release of Fortnite. To be honest, things started to take a turn.
Oh
for the
my
worse.
God.
Deep fried memes were made by running an image through a filter over and over, until it became warped and barely legible. This would be combined with an equally ridiculous piece of text, if any at all. Surreal memes, on the other hand, often featured this guy. He was associated with things
I'm-
like the layers of irony and the term
Yeah.
angry, popping up everywhere online. Mr. Orange, or Orang, is another example. Consistent with its name, this humor operated on a similar premise to much older memes. To be
I don't-
random and
I
confusing,
don't know this guy.
not many of these made sense, and it was often that and their absurdity that made them entertaining. Happy Wheels,
Interesting.
Bloons Tower Defense, and The Impossible Quiz
Classic.
have one thing in common. They are all Flash games.
We watched a video about Flash. You don't know about it? Check it out right here. Bang, right, wait. Bang, right there.
The mid-2000s and the early 2010s are considered
Classic.
the golden age for this kind of gaming.
I actually made,
Mid-2000s and
Hold
the
on.
early 2010s are considered the golden age for this.
actually made a meme on this. It was like in middle school, and actually the most popular thing that we were doing, and I got to eat whatever pick of lunch I wanted. So I think I picked Jason's Deli. If you know, you know.
Kind of gaming. Most of my exposure to these titles was on Cool Math.
Not to
Games, where I
flex or
spent
anything,
hours
but
playing
yeah.
Fireboy and Water Girl and Papa's Diarrhea. I distinctly remember spamming the sauce until I had a stack about 3 feet tall.
oh
selling it
my
for
God.
$0 and then quitting
What
the
the
game.
hell?
Turning back time even further, Flash first released in 1996. People eventually figured out that it was possible to make games on it, with many of them starting to pop up in the early 2000s. The website Newgrounds emerged at a similar time. It soon became a massive platform for
Newgrounds was peak, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Flash games. This website made it possible for almost anyone to produce, share, and play others' work online, with the only requirement being a clickable link. Of course, these games weren't limited to Newgrounds, as they could be embedded and accessed through any other website, like Cool Maths games. This meant that if your game was
Oh my
received well in
God,
one
Cool
place,
Maths,
there was
bro.
always a chance it could
My favorite, bro. I swear to God, Cool Maths
take
was.
off in another. As a result,
Oh
it's no
man, the
surprise that
games
some
you could
of these
just play
games
on there, bro.
became massive. Happy Wheels was and still is huge. YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier did
Oh
Let's Plays
my.
that received millions
Yes,
of views.
yes.
With Jacksepticeye uploading as recently as April 2024.
That's
By now,
damn.
you've likely heard that Flash is no longer a thing.
Yeah,
You
right.
might be surprised to learn that the end of Flash games was heralded by Steve Jobs way back in 2010. In his famous Thoughts on Flash letter, he criticized Adobe for Flash's security issues, poor
We've seen
performance,
this.
and the fact
Seen
that
a
it was
video on
closed
this.
system. This meant that Apple would have less control over the software and any bug fixes, being one of the main reasons they refused to support it on iOS. As the years passed and things like HTML5 rose to prominence and offered more security, Flash sped towards the inevitable. Soon enough, Adobe announced its end of life
Man,
in
rest in peace,
2017,
Flash,
and
bro.
Flash took its last breath in 2020. Thankfully, many of these games were preserved, and it's entirely possible to still play them. This isn't to say, however, that thousands weren't lost to time.
Yeah. Vaporwave. This one's
If you
interesting.
recognize this image, you most likely remember Vaporwave. This picture is the cover of Floral Shop, an album made by the artist Vectroid. The most iconic song from the selection was Lisa Frank 420. This was used everywhere, in memes, edits, and often as part of YouTube outros. Of course, Vaporwave was much more than just a
Is this the
subgenre of
song that's
music.
playing?
It was also a distinct and fascinating aesthetic that began on the internet. Common features included retro 3D graphics, pink and purple pastels, dolphins, and foliage. After its inception in the early years of the decade, Vaporwave began to rapidly spread over numerous platforms. Whether you found it on commentary channels or songs on Bandcamp,
Yeah,
it
Leafy-
quickly became
Leafy uses,
undeniably
huh?
huge, peaking at around 2015.
This
There
is
was
where I
even an
remember
entire
that.
game called Mall Quest made in this style. Copies of this
Leafy was probably ahead of his time making those type
can
videos.
still be found online, although the original version was taken down. It was described as a procedurally generated shopping sim, and it actually looked pretty cool. Returning to design, you might notice that, for an aesthetic born in the 2010s, it feels a bit out of place. That's
Yeah.
because most of the imagery you're seeing here was heavily inspired by the 80s and 90s. This transcended architecture, with one of the most influential artifacts being a game. Echo the Dolphin, for the Sega Genesis, informed music and aesthetics alike, largely responsible for the heavy use of dolphins in design. Looking at Floral Shop, one of the songs is even named after this title. If you were big on Vaporwave in the 2010s, there's a good chance you recall some of its numerous subgenres. I've mentioned this before, but one of my personal favourites is Mallsoft. Being quite literal, this would pair shops and plazas with subtle edits to bring out their colour. Another recognisable style is Synthwave. While sharing similar elements to Vaporwave,
Classic.
it's actually an entirely separate aesthetic. Where it celebrates the neon colours and media from the 80s, Vaporwave presents a more satirical and at times political reflection of the 80s and 90s. Synthwave is responsible for all of the backgrounds you had that looked like this.
I like that
Endless grids,
type of
cityscapes,
aesthetic. I
and
think it's
cars.
cool.
I don't remember how many times I put on one of these videos, but it was definitely more than once.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, unlike other aesthetics in this video, Vaporwave and Synthwave are still active in smaller online communities. While they are far from their previous position in the mainstream, you can still find new releases if you know where to look.
That's crazy. Swag.
You either
Oh
have
my
it or
god.
you don't, but if you're subscribed, you definitely do. Swag, in this context,
Dude,
describes a
this
style
was
of fashion that
crazy,
was very
bro.
popular in the early 2010s. While the word itself had been around for years before, pieces
Swag.
like You Were a Jerk by the New Boys jump-started
You
this
Were a
new
Jerk, I
manifestation,
know.
which continued for a couple years in the form of music and clothing. To be swagged out involved flat brim caps with the brim intact, racks spent on clothes and more hats, and your front and back labelled with Obey draped in knickknacks. These
Obey and Bape. Oh my
caps
god,
were often
bro.
brought down to cover your eyes in
The amount
photos,
of
which would
that
then be put through the first
company
filter
had a
available on
chokehold
Instagram or Tumblr.
on the
People don't
freaking
really use this
generation's
anymore when
crazy.
posting, but good lord were they popular back then.
Oh god.
Scroll down far enough through anyone's account, without liking anything of course, and you'll find a world of yellow, grainy filters and vignettes. Shutter shades were also pretty big at the time, with people like Kanye frequently wearing them. Anyway, swag was boosted along by artists like Lil B, who posted the song I Own Swag in 2012.
Dude, that's
The term
crazy.
then was rapidly becoming widespread, in tandem with the production of too many ridiculous caps to count. This entire trend produced some of the most bizarre and iconic fits of the 21st century. Zendaya had some absolutely
Oh
diabolical
my.
drip, and Justin
Oh
Bieber was
my god. Nah, he ain't have to do him that
halfway through
bad.
the decade, swag started to slow down, and massive Obey caps became less and less desirable. The
Yeah.
word itself evolved to become more ironic, and was largely replaced by words like drip among younger generations.
True. Now it's drippy.
By 2013, the use of what is now known as Fruitiger Aero had largely vanished. For a time,
we just watched the
similar
video.
aesthetic became more popular in corporate design. This is referred to as
Oh.
Frutica Metro. You might have seen it on your Xbox 360,
Yeah.
CDs, or textbooks. At the time, this style marked the beginning of more flat and minimalist approaches to UI. After all, it gets
Okay.
its name from the Metro design language created by Microsoft. This emphasized simple geometric patterns and shapes, absent of the glossy 3D look of the past. Windows 8 is a prime example of this, with its colorful selection of tiles and icons. The
True.
aesthetic is also known as
I don't mind. I don't mind this. I don't mind that aesthetic.
and glossiness. When looking at these designs, you'll notice the prevalence of speakers, dancing silhouettes, and swirls of color. It was pretty much the stock choice for making a product appear more interesting than it actually was. By slapping it on a CD or a poster, you
Yeah.
can quickly add some vibrancy and energy. Much like Vaporwave, even it can be divided into smaller.
Oh man, wait.
equally
This is definitely classics right here.
recognizable
What the heck?
categories. For example, Funky Metro, centered around instruments, DJs, and dancing, is
Oh,
a lot
this is
different to
crazy.
Grungy Metro, which relates to scene and darker colors. Outside of its classifications, you could spot Frutica Metro in
Wait.
a bunch of advertisements. This
Nah,
one
this is
particularly
crazy.
is an interesting example, showing Jack Black amidst bright splashes of color. Going as far back as 2004, we can find some of its earlier appearances, like the ad shown here. You'll notice that, much like Frutica Aero, nature still played a big role in these designs.
Yeah,
When
but
shown alongside technology, this was likely done to help it appear less intimidating and more accessible. By animating things like plants and dolphins, devices could feel less alien and more familiar. The use of this style today has been overwhelmingly shelved in favour of minimalism, meaning it kind of served as a transitional period between the maximalist aesthetics of the 2000s and the flat
Yeah.
designs of today.
agree.
Looking at other videos we've done on this channel on the 90s and the 2000s, you can make out clear, long-lasting, and distinct aesthetic styles. A lot of these were used by
I need to watch that
corporations where
one.
Technology appear advanced and
Y2K.
design hinged on an almost fantastical anticipation for the future. By the 2010s, this future was well underway, and with it, the internet. If you
Oh
weren't
my
like at the start
god,
of it,
that
you
guy.
definitely were before the end, and I
Is that
know
a
this
whole
because you
Halo
watched
suit,
this video.
brother?
The number of people who
Dude.
are online more than doubled from 2010 to 2020, meaning that people's experiences of the world were increasingly informed by things on the internet. And so the reason the 2010s looked like that is you. User-driven
Yeah, I
media
guess,
like
yeah.
YouTube videos, vines, flash games, and memes sculpted millions of people's lives even outside of the internet. Simultaneously, this media started to become people's lives. Making videos with a shitty webcam was suddenly profitable, and the creation
True.
of content was something anyone could do. So while some of it may be cringe now, all of it played a role in creating what many consider to be the golden age of the internet.
True. Is this the classic? Oh, it's over. Dang, that was a good video. What the heck? This was a really good video. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. Anyways. Oh, how was that?